There's two of a card and one basic shard, so I
There's
would
another
make it.
giveaway up for 700 platinum right now. The keyword is give me that plat. I am probably the only person in the Hex streaming community who has never used give me that whatever as a keyword for anything ever. How does that make you feel? Weak. Yep. And with the cards drawn, we can see BlackRoger and Pheelon.
He kept that hand, really?
He's looking a little bit shard flooded here.
Yeah. Interesting. No mulligans. Guys, the higher seed does get to choose whether to play or draw here. So in this case, BlackRoger should have gotten to choose whether to play or draw. That is posted in the rules, and their match is starting and probably on a delay. I really should have tried to confirm that a little further ahead of time, I guess, but this is just like the top 8 of it's just like the top 8 of any other event. If the players have no issue continuing the match, they can keep going. We do see a turn 1 or a turn 1 Electroid from BlackRoger here, and on turn 2 Pheelon is tunneling a troop with his Sapphire deck. I suppose that's probably an Excavation Hulk.
No, it's always a Monsoon.
Almost certainly a Reese. We see the Sapphire come down, a second Electroid. Are we going to see a turn 2 swing with the first Electroid? It's possible, and not really that improbable anymore.
The other card peeking up above the card blocker too. I wonder what kind of deck this is. I wonder if this deck runs Reese.
Pheelon offering the chance to restart, and it looks like BlackRoger is okay continuing the game. Thank you guys for at least double checking on that. From here on out, every round will have the higher seed choosing whether they want to play or draw first in game 1 of your match. Thank you for paying attention to the stream and being awesome people. Hornet bot plans coming out from BlackRoger that will likely turn into a Hornet bot itself when the Electroids exhaust. Will this kind of aggro be fast enough to beat the Reese that's underground? It's difficult to say, but Pheelon hasn't dropped a third resource here, possibly still chatting about the situation, which we appreciate and are down for.
Hard to want to restart when you've got 2 Electroids on the board, I think.
Well, I mean, yes and no. We can't tell what's in his hand. There's a lot of things that are up on there, but still, both players playing nice about it. We see Crackling Vortex played by Pheelon here, getting that double shard. He is playing Wyatt the Sapper, so that 5th shard will... the 5th charge will allow him to draw an extra card. And those extra cards always important, especially when you're playing against what appears to be the Kaldheim Dwarf Rush aggro, punch you in the mouth with a bajillion robots deck. We see that 3rd charge being used to create the Worker Bot. Hornet Bot and Worker Bot already created. Looks like BlackRoger's going to create that 2nd Hornet Bot. Kind of
That's an interesting move. Which
allows the Terrabot to be played for free. This is turn 3. That Terrabot draws out a counter, but BlackRoger is still going to swing for 6. Almost had a board state with... with 13 damage represented on board 3, on turn 3. As it stands, only got 10 damage on board. Facing down Pheelon's almost nothing. 5 cards in hand, 3 resources available. As we were looking at those top 10 cards earlier, there's not a ton of free plays for Sapphire here. Almost everything they have costs 4 or higher. Cerulean Mirror Knight is one of those cheap things, but that is likely just going to throw itself in front of an electric body at some point. But we'll see if the turn 5 Mastery of Time or other not card reverting, but board state altering cards matter. As it stands right now, let's see if BlackRoger has a way to push more than just the normal 10 damage through that he's got.
It's going to be 7 damage if he decides to block here. That'll take him down to 7. He does decide to block. Mirror Knight not drawing any cards, instead just being prevent 3 damage. But Pheelon being trying to find a card out of his top 3 cards that he'd like.
The peak never terrible there. It's always just basically being replaced by a card you'd probably rather have. Menacing Grulk comes down. Menacing Grulk not going to push any damage through really immediately, but it will delay those robots all by a turn. They become exhausted and can't ready for this turn. BlackRoger still has 3 cards in hand, plays one of them as a shard, and
passes the turn. So we need more answers by Pheelon here. One of them is Reese. So that goes a long way toward starting to stabilize here.
It'll definitely push some. It'll block at the most valuable point. It will block those electroids. Mastery of Time will mean that we see 2 things created by Reese. Also means the Reese can swing here, alongside the Grulk, who still had that fog covering its face, which is a little bit of a graphical error there. It definitely could swing. So 6 damage coming through. That's 6 more next turn, along with a Hornet Bot that can now block Hornet Bots. Function 1 is vocalize Buzz Buzz, with Function 2 going revert to Function 1, Buzz Buzz Buzz. Storm Cloud coming down. Will this be another swing from Pheelon, or is he going to keep digging? Going to create some Stormlings, I guess, probably to throw in front of the Hornet Bots and the Electroids. Gets a Thunder Puff and a Bitty Bolt. Those are Stormlings that he'll want. Has the interesting choice of using a Bitty Bolt now or saving it to block and use in the potential chance of an alpha swing. Did Sapphire stabilize here against one of the more aggressive opening hands I can imagine from Sapphire Ruby Dwarf deck?
I don't think there's anything that the Coldheim deck has in its ranks that can actually come back from a board stay like this.
That's true. I mean, the deck lists are up, so we can look and see what.
The Kaldheim deck doesn't have any direct reach here. It's all about just trying to get the fast forward state and just overrun the opponent, and it looks like Pheelon has managed to stabilize here.
It's sort of true. BlackRoger's deck does have some direct damage actions main board.
Interesting to know. I hate to say it, but it is worth saying, I think, that had he had the same hand and gone first, he would have got this through before the Grout came down.
Yep. The players did decide to play it out. And I mean, we can't guarantee that it had the same hand, but that is something worth mentioning at the very least. Really hard to swing here. Reese can block effectively one of those Electroids. The Hornet Bots will both either get chumped or blocked out. Reactor Bot's not a huge thing here.
I think he's got to hope for a mistake.
Yeah, it's not looking great. I mean, he could have a combination of actions that allow him to deal enough direct damage. Maybe he has a Storm Call buried in there. Nope. Yeah, it's a rough situation.
The longer the game goes, the more better Reese makes his board.
Yeah, well, and double Infiltrator Bot. Well, I did say Infiltrator Bots were not fantastic earlier. They are tremendous here, creating unblockable troops that now put BlackRoger on a 2-turn clock as opposed to a 3-turn clock, I think it was, if you consider Grulk. No, because of the Hornet Bots. Yeah, it's weird. I think that puts it to 2 turns from 3 or 4 without doing the math. So that counter on Terrobot, which was really early on in the game, is actually huge here. The Terrobot would have been a fantastic troop to have on BlackRoger's side of the board.
But no, it was all timely, both combination of going first and having a counter magic followed by the Reese that came in onto the Menacing Grulk. I mean, that peak on turn 4.
Well, gotta wonder what that hit.
Might have gotten exactly what he needed.
We do see the alpha swing from BlackRoger here. This is likely a desperation swing. There's only one card left in his hand. Now, again, the deck lists are public, and this is current. So if Pheelon was worried about something, he could absolutely check the deck list to see what he has to play around in this situation. We'll see. Pheelon is dealing with the blocks right now, probably wanting to make sure that he gets as much damage prevented as possible without losing any troops. It's unlikely, yeah. It's unlikely that he's going to lose enough to not be able to swing for lethal next turn. Because now has 10. Well, yeah, he doesn't actually have lethal left after this, does he? He's sacrificing the Biddy Bolt. Okay, so that will change things. That will leave the Thunder Puff, and now he does have lethal after. Because he'll have Reese and both Infiltrator bots left after these blocks resolve. So depending on what's in BlackRoger's hand, we can see him increasing his card blocker to block everything here.
Not only needs to have all the shards, they need to be bigger. So more
true.
of the shards.
Yeah. Leaves his opponent on 4 health. Does he have a way to deal 4 damage? We know for a fact he really just doesn't. Doesn't play out his charge power either, which is sort of interesting. I mean, if you assume that he's going to survive this turn, you would expect him to put down a worker bot just to prevent like Buccaneer or Time Ripple from being extra damage. He will have to chump with Construct Foreman here. Well, no, that's only 10 damage. Yeah,
right.
I thought that.
I mean, this probably represents he's got a mastery if he's attacking with all of these.
Or yeah, I mean, he's got to have something, or he would be worried. So, are there verdicts, main?
No. I don't see any verdicts for BlackRoger.
So let's see if there's a mastery or maybe just a single chump blocker coming out. Well, because the Reese will create a troop and another troop would chump too at the very worst. Passing turn! Tyrannosaurus Hex is created. This might be a mistake. There's a shard. There's a charge bot. That makes Reactor Bot a 5/5. That's the last of BlackRoger's cards. That's not... Yeah, and there was a counter magic waiting in Pheelon's hand anyway, which makes a whole lot of sense. He was pretty safe in this situation while he was holding that counter magic. Right. BlackRoger swings with both. Might as well play the game to its completion. But that will be the end of Game 1. BlackRoger will be taken down by Pheelon. They will go into Game 2, and in case I would like to reiterate, the loser of every game gets to choose whether to go first or second in the next game. And you can see BlackRoger is, of course, saying that he will go first next game.
So
should probably fix the card blocker so we can't see what he's drawing.
I want to point out at the very end of that last game,
his card blocker, by the way.
I think Pheelon made an error that could have ended up costing him the game. If he had ended up getting that Tower Hulk off of the Reese instead, he would have had no blocker. Sure, he had the counter magic, but if and we did see that there was the shard that was coming, and if there was shard, that would have been enough damage to actually kill him that turn. So
well, not just that, but if he hadn't have blocked with his Foreman, he would have had 4.
He also would have had the
regardless.
Foreman that would have been deadly. Yep, that is also true. So bit of a risky play, assuming that you're going to get the good troop out of that, or even any troop that can at least block.
Winner
Still
of that
a pretty good
200 platinum, winner of that 700 platinum is Holy Sal. Holy Sal, please type your in-game name into chat. Congratulations.
This is a really fun deck. I like watching the Dwarf aggro. We do not have a lot of strong aggro choices in set 1 and 2, but Dwarf aggro, and we've got multiple people playing it here in the top 16.
I think I would 100% take in the replay there. I think going first is so important in game 1 for an aggro deck, especially when you're looking at things like Grauk and Reese.
Can somebody link the Battle Fee page?
Sure.
That way, even if you do lose the game 2, you go first again in game 3. This way, even if he wins this game, he's going to be going second in game 3, which is going to be pretty rough for the aggro.
Again, given the option by his opponent to replay, he chose to continue the game, and I'm sure he'll live with that decision. I appreciate that they discussed it amongst themselves and came to a resolution. That's the most we can ever hope for.
Yep.
Holy Sal, need your in-game name. If you can type that into the chat on stream, that'd be greatly appreciated, sir.
And looks like we are going on to the next game.
So, with the play, does BlackRoger keep his 7-card hand? He does. Doesn't even think. He's just like, yes, this is the 7 I want.
Snacky.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Would be great if he didn't play a shard. just like, well, I'll just keep. These are 7 good cards. I'll just keep. I'll get a shard eventually.
Next level shoutcasters.
Pheelon going to reply with the Sapphire Shard, playing nothing. That Electroid can swing on turn 2. It's possible. We saw the charge bots in his deck. Will we see it happen? Here's the Shard. Into Tunneled Troop. That probably isn't it. Electroid will pass the turn. What Tunneled Troops would we expect to see from this deck? Well, if we look at the deck list, we'll know exactly what it is, but you guys can see it over there. I'll just give you a sly wink. Wink.
Monsoon, illegal deck list.
Cerulean Mentalist comes down, staring down the board as the nasty card that it is. Now let's see if BlackRoger will respond with more aggressive. Oh, Crackling Bolt. Get that alternate art Cerulean Mirror Knight out of here. Shoots that down, gains a charge, plays an Electroid, plays a Worker Bot, does not have a way to create a 4th Dwarf or Robot with no resources left, meaning, naturally, that he will have to wait 1 more turn. But next turn, he's swinging for 6 if we assume that he can put something down for that Electroid and Worker Bot. Pheelon, of course, on 2 resources, 7 cards in hand, has a lot of chance to just counter whatever... if you counter, like, something next turn, right? You stop the Electroids from swinging. Do you think it's worth it?
Yeah, it depends on what the rest of the hand ends up looking like, but I probably would. You want to stop the Electroid damage here.
Yeah. And all things considered, Buccaneer comes down, knocks an Electroid back to hand. That will slow down the Electroid swing and, of course, probably affect whatever tunneling troop that is. Here comes the Electroid. Here comes... nothing else. A past phase. 2 cards left in hand, and BlackRoger cannot produce a Dwarf or Robot onto the board. That deck runs very low resources as far as I can remember, so possibly holding on to actions or other such. Buccaneer hits the board, will likely bounce that same Electroid again. A swing from the first Buccaneer will push 2 damage through. No swing from the Buccaneer will not push any damage through, leaving them back for the potential double block. So will we see that Electroid replayed yet again? see BlackRoger considering its moves, plays the Terrabot into the empty board. The 3/5 flight troop for 3 here actually cost 4 resources, but now costs 3 because it counts itself in reducing its cost. Chooses not to swing with Electroid. The double block is not what BlackRoger wanted to deal with here. Pheelon in a little tougher of a spot here, staring down an impressive board at the very least. We saw him recover against it earlier, but this time he has no Reese tunneled. And without Reese tunneled, I think it's hard for Sapphire to really control this kind of board state. Passes the turn, holds up 3 resources. So we'll see what that affects here. See another shard from BlackRoger, replays the Electroid, holds 1 card left in hand, and we'll see if he swings, does, just with the Terrabot? No, with the Terrabot and the Electroid. Now he's willing to sacrifice that first Electroid. Assuming the double block is something Pheelon will try, and he does.
So the currently the Mega Hulk is tunneling. I actually forgot its number.
It'll. I'm pretty sure it'll surface next turn.
I think it's 8 now. Becomes tunneling 5. Yeah, probably. Well, unless one more is bounced, but that is if Pheelon is keeping track of the exact number of counters and
Also,
tunneling it's likely to have.
Also interesting because sometimes Tectonic Mega Hulk doesn't actually care, and doesn't surface when its tunneling counters meet its tunneling number because its tunneling number reduces after it gains the counter, which is sometimes very weird, but I suppose is the way the rules work. So let's see what happens here.
So Pheelon probably knew it was already Mega Hulk before, but he definitely knows now.
No, he doesn't have enough for a counter magic, so Mega Hulk will definitely rise. 2 Buccaneers and a Time Ripple have already been used. So with 2 resources open, will Pheelon be able to answer this Mega Hulk right now? Having enough resources even to play 2 Terabots, including the cost increased one.
What can Pheelon do here? Interesting note here. Tectonic Mega Hulk has reduced its tunneling so low that if it's bounced, which is one of Sapphire's only way of dealing with troops, it will be able to be tunneled again and will surface with speed with almost no problem.
It can't be tunneled this turn, but next turn.
It can. But if its tunneling ever reaches 0, on your main one, you can tunnel it. It will immediately surface and have speed.
It's an interesting interaction. It's like a dolphin dive into the ground and just immediately comes back up.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It just splashes down in and splooshes out. Brr.
It's like whales, except they're Tectonic Mega Hulks.
So Pheelon in some pretty big trouble here, even with the retunneling. Still just so many troops on board already with the Terabots, it's going to be hard for Pheelon to win this.
With that crackling bolt on the Cerulean Maronite, that is not enough to block Electroid and kill it, and he's even willing to let Reactor Bot die. So this should be 9 damage in, taking Pheelon down to 8. If he chooses to block. If he takes it all, that will take him down to 5.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how lucky you think you are and if you can get those specters off of the top. I think that's what he's playing towards here.
I mean, you'd have to get extremely lucky here, but you'd still play to your outs. Grolk's not enough here. Grolk is Grolk and something is kind of enough. But again, really, what is it? Is it Grolk and Time Ripple? Because then you just play the Tectonic again. It could be Grolk and Counter. He doesn't have the resources for.
I'm thinking his best out would be if he had Shard Mastery of Time for multiple turns in a row. That would give him an outside chance.
Time is what he needs. Stormcloud with no charges does not give him that time. But it is a blocker that can block flight. So if he had yet another Time Ripple...
It's likely this is going to go to game 3. I can't imagine there's a 2-cost action that saves the day here. Mega Hulk, the Terrabots, the Electroid that go in, the Robot Army Revolution has stood up and is now ready to slam in. This is similar to some of the power we have seen from a lot of the Kaldheim deck list clones. Basically, it's not exactly Kaldheim's list. It's not his deck specifically, but he placed in 2 tournaments with this when no one else was running anything even close. So it's kind of easy to attribute him to the deck.
Certainly the one who popularized it. And certainly enough to get through his pod.
Absolutely. So here we see the reserves are going to go by one more time, and then we will get into game 3.
I'd like to point out that on Cyrus's stream there has just been a chain of 4 interrupts in one chain.
Crazy.
And what were they fighting over?
A living totem.
A living totem?
Living totem, counter magic, verdict, verdict, counter magic. We haven't really seen the interrupt chains going
No,
off
but
the
even
charts
with
like that.
even with all the Sapphire we've had, we haven't seen, like, we did see a counter a verdict earlier that was trying to counter something. Yeah, it's been mostly okay.
Just an exchange of nope, yup, nope, yup.
That being said, that's kind of the thing with Sapphire is, like, you bank on your opponent having one more than you, right? So you've got to use yours at the time where it's the most necessary. Or at least that's what I would assume. No, that's the wrong list. I was looking at the wrong list. I thought for a second BlackRoger was running many a thing more than I thought he was originally. Shards.
But here we go into game number 3.
Game 3. The important deciding match between Pheelon and BlackRoger. The winner of this particular match will move into the top 8. And while that doesn't sound like a huge, crazy, nonsensical thing, the 9th to 16th prizes are 2,000 platinum, 3 set 2 packs, and 2 set 1 packs. The winner of this match will move up to the 5th to 8th place slot, where the prizes are double that many packs and $100 USD. That's cash. It's money.
It's like they're redoing possibly the coin flip.
Yeah, we see a good fix, so Pheelon can play first here in this final game.
Oh, did they have the wrong choice in the first game? I was all tapped there for a second. Yeah, well, I was next to them too. It's ready. Pheelon going first, playing his Sapphire Shard, not playing an Ancestors Chosen. Ancestors Chosen kind of strong in this matchup, not fantastic though. Might have been hitting the reserves. Pheelon lays down Pheelon. BlackRoger lays down that Ruby Shard and lays out a turn 1 War Machinist, a little different of a turn 1 play than we've seen before. War Machinist, of course, a 1/1 for 1. A dwarf will deal 1 damage to the opponent every time an artifact enters play on that side of the board. Pheelon plays out the Storm Cloud. Interestingly, just that turn 2 Storm Cloud. Here it is. No Cerulean Mirror Knight, nothing else. We'll see if that comes back to bite him. Shard of Innovation from BlackRoger, choosing Sapphire. Will he have a burn to remove the Storm Cloud? Swings with the War Machinist here, so it seems unlikely. The Storm Cloud, of course, can blow. Oh,
Well, before being able to block,
there we
we'll
go.
go ahead and burn it.
Yes, there we go. There's the burn.
Now, this War Machinist, we didn't see this War Machinist in the last 2 games, and in game 1, an early War Machinist could have been the trick needed to get that extra damage through to win.
Yeah, War Machinist in this deck represents a pretty good amount of reach, but we see it getting bounced here by the Buccaneer.
And the control starts. War Machinist is back.
Sapphire Shard comes down now. Charge Power and Electroid coming from BlackRoger. Those will both deal 1 point of damage. Those points of damage add up because if you remember, game 1, BlackRoger needed 4 points of damage to get through.
And if War Machinist isn't answered in the near future, that is damage that could even get through if Pheelon is forced to be defensive as Sapphire.
Here comes White, the Sapphire's Charge Power. Pheelon draws back up to 4 cards in hand. Bear in mind that while the Dwarf aggro usually falls behind in cards at this point in the game, BlackRoger still has 4. 4 cards in hand, gonna draw a card. Well, Havoc120 doesn't know how to report score, disqualified for not knowing how to report score. How did you make it this far and not know how to make it this score? Come on now, Havoc. Little button next to your name, I'm pretty sure. Although there might not be. Fair enough. Another card drawn. Here we are. 5 cards, BlackRoger side of the board. Gearsmith comes down. Gearsmith, not a artifact, so it won't do that 1 point of damage, but it will find an artifact in the top 3 cards, reduce its cost by 1. That's an Electroid for free, hitting the board, ping, 1 damage to the face, meaning the original Electroid can swing. Still 4 cards in hand for BlackRoger.
Now, curiously, he chose the Electroid and not the Terabot. The Terabot could have been played this turn as well. So taking the cheaper option probably indicates here he wants to play another troop in its place.
Terabot would have been 1 cost out of range, I think. He would have had 4 on board, and it would have cost 3 with 2 resources open.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, no, JJ. Yeah, you saw what John Drew had said. I just finally went and looked at the bracket, and I was like, yeah, you haven't even started it. Of course, they can't update themselves. All right, so there's that Storm Cloud with Biddy Bolts. Biddy Bolts, splashies, super defensive, actually really good here.
Because the Biddy Bolts can do 2 damage each to a exhausted troop, and troops have to exhaust in order to attack. Not to mention, Pheelon still has all 5 resources open.
Here's a charge bot. Will those 5 resources and 4 cards be used to do anything about a charge bot? Charge bot resolves. Reactor bot, Electroid, and Electroid swinging in. 1 more point of damage. That War Machinist, not a card highly ranked on constructed tier lists, has done well more than its share of damage this game, all on its ownsies. Let's see what happens here. Those bitty bolts and the splashies can do some interesting work. The splashies, at the very least, can block 6 damage here and draw 2 cards. That's pretty big for 2 troops. The bitty bolts could, of course, destroy the reactor bot or an electroid if they wished, by sacrificing both of their lives, and also block that damage.
Some deep thought here. How is Pheelon going to decide to handle this? Because he does not have that much health. He does need to mitigate some of this. He can use the bitty bolts to block and then kill one of these, either the electroid or the reactor bot. 3 cards are left in BlackRoger's hand. So, but Pheelon does still have 4 cards. 4 cards in Mono Sapphire is pretty intimidating.
So here we see the blocks. Interestingly enough, a Buccaneer is just being used to be thrown in front of an electroid. If I had to imagine, one of the bitty bolts will sacrifice onto that electroid, and now the Buccaneer and the electroid will trade with each other. The splashy will sacrifice itself. All damage prevented and 1 electroid down. Can BlackRoger reaffirm the board, especially now that his opponent has drawn another card? He tunnels a troop, and that troop will probably come out really quickly if we look at how things are now.
But Pheelon just stockpiling those cards up to 5 cards now from that splashy block. He gave up his Buccaneer, didn't opt to kill anything. Or actually, he killed Electroid.
At this point, it's got to be a mixture of things and counters. You know, it can't just be one or the other. Things in Sapphire decks will lose to the things in Kaldheim's deck. Counters won't stop quick enough. So what really can it be? And this is a swing. That's got to be Mastery, I would suppose. No, it's going to be Grolk, also acceptable. Will exhaust BlackRoger's board, and they will not ready during this ready phase. With only that little bit of damage in the sky, BlackRoger's not terrified yet. Interesting to see he puts down a shard. Gonna tunnel another card. If that was 2 Reeses, one of them would die now, so that's definitely not the case.
So one must be a Reese and the other must be a Monsoon.
Yes. Of course, we can see that those are both the same tunneled troop. That will come out really quickly. Crackling Bolt being used here especially well. Pheelon has no resources available for the counter to destroy the Grolk. Not only prevent 2 damage coming through, but this will do something else. It will gain BlackRoger a charge, allowing him to play a Worker Bot. The Worker Bot will become the 7th Dwarfer robot on the board, which means that first Mega Hulk should surface next turn. Again, a counter from Pheelon could slow that down. It's got to be counter magic, and have we seen one yet?
The Bitty Bolt could do it too, but he does not do the math on that. Does not.
So here comes that first one. It
And there's
will
the
be
counter
countered.
magic.
Now, that's not the end of the world for BlackRoger. He won't throw away the game, flip the table over that. We'll play these construction plans for the Hornet bots, which are in fact an artifact, pinging 1 more damage through. That's 7 or 8 damage alone from the War Machinist pings. Never mind the damage that it has provided on its own. Now, possibly a risk here, swinging with the board, which also means swinging with the War Machinist. The War Machinist exhausts itself here, and as an exhausted troop, it will be targetable by the Bitty Bolt. So,
Yeah, small surprise seeing the War Machinist swing in.
everything
But,
else I'm down with. The War Machinist seems loosey-goosey, although he might be trying to bait the Bitty Bolt out of its explosive situation so that then the Hornet bot has free reign over Pheelon's airspace.
But BlackRoger has no cards in his hand. He's played out his hand. He may not be. He's nowhere close to his charge power again. I think getting the 1 damage now or forcing a block is worth or equivalent to holding it back and possibly drawing an artifact.
So here comes the big bolt. It will explode and choose the reactor bot, which is an equally acceptable choice. Pheelon, using Splashy to prevent damage there, will just trade it with the War Machinist. That is a trade, I suppose, that you would make almost any day of the week. But it does lose the card from that Splashy there. Pheelon using his charge power for the second time this game, drawing an extra card, back to 4 cards in hand, 8 resources, another Storm Cloud, which is probably the last thing BlackRoger wanted to see here, although it doesn't look to be gaining any charges.
Now this
Hornetbot comes out.
Happens to be the exact number of robots that Mega Hulk needs to come up.
Yep. So the Tectonic Mega Hulk will surface this turn. Is there another counter? There is. That's 2 counters. There's 2 counters, 2 Mega Hulks. Mega Hulk's still not the worst thing that BlackRoger could find. Let's see what he does here. He can swing with Electroid for sure. He can swing with the board, really. No reason not to. That Storm Cloud is not going to provide enough defense on its own to slow down everything. With 7 health left, every point of health matters here.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine without the tunneled Reese, and it's very hard to imagine Pheelon coming back and winning this at this point. I mean, the only other thing, I guess, maybe would be if he brought in the 1 mass polymorph Dingler he has. I kind of doubt it against this deck, but
It's an interesting block. A block to keep himself at 1 and not lose his Storm Cloud, which could be useful.
Here comes the Gearsmith, which will be countered. 3 counter magics down. Pheelon cannot afford to let that hit the board. Can he? I mean, a Grolk is still safety. Cerulean Mirror Knight into Shard. Not well. If this is Splashy, he can draw another card. It still wasn't enough. He
could still draw 2 cards.
Could draw 2 cards here. Yeah. I mean, he's got to draw the 2 cards here. If it was Biddy Bolt, he could block, kill, block. Yeah, no, there wasn't a Stormling that helped there.
Another Cerulean Mirror Knight.
Reese,
And
the
Reese, the only
which
thing
will
though,
not prevent the 2 damage in the sky. This game 3 goes to BlackRoger, who will get that last point of damage through in the sky. There's no way that Pheelon's deck can defend against this unless Reese bugs out, which thank goodness it doesn't, because that would be the most salt-inducing thing of all time.
I think the 2 Mirror Knights are going to take Reese and throw him up in the air. Here, catch.
With a little bit of a rock. And the draw off the top was a burn anyway. One of the few times I don't mind saying that. That's GG. That's the end of the round. Congratulations to BlackRoger. There is a small amount of happiness in every part that we have that BlackRoger is continuing in because he is the streaming one. We want a featured match the whole way, but either way, I was still rooting for both players. Hakeswill is saying BM. That's not BM. So that means Golden Saucer guy so far has moved in on over John Druitt. Xantosh took down Kaldheim, who, if I check the deck list really quickly, might not have even been running the Kaldheim deck. Oh, let's be real here. He was definitely running the Kaldheim deck.
He was playing it.
I just want you to know that I'm the winner of that giveaway.